The gospel today from Mark is a beautiful, beautiful story of actually not one, but two healings. And I'd like to speak particularly about this particular woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She had endured much. She had been to many doctors. She had literally tried everything, and she was getting worse. And so, of course, we can see that she was obviously discouraged, kind of at the end of her rope, but she had heard about Jesus. She had heard probably the fact that he had performed great works of healing and miracles. And who knows, but it's probable, and I believe that she was not simply maybe led by an intuition, but according to the scriptures here, there was faith. There was active faith that she was given at that moment to receive healing. And so one can imagine a pretty bold move for a woman in those days to fight through the crowd. And she said to herself, if only I could touch the end of his cloak, well, I could just simply touch him, I will be healed. And of course, immediately, you know what happens. She does touch the Lord. The Lord feels the power emanating from his being. And he could have left it at that. You know, how many people, probably hundreds of people, in those days were simply healed by being in the Lord's presence, by hearing his word? We don't know. But it's obvious here that the Lord wants to do something more for this particular woman. And so he stops, and he kind of simply looks around and he says, who touched me? Who touched me? Of course, the reaction of the apostles, you know, you're being literally crushed by this crowd, and you're saying, who touched you? But he persists. And this woman, of course, who is hearing this, breaks through the crowd, and interesting, like the synagogue official, drops at the feet of the Lord. And what does she do? She tells him the whole thing. It's almost like she's going to confession, you know? And of course, notice that she comes to the Lord in fear and trembling. I would propose, although it may not be the gospel truth, but I would propose to you that she needed another healing. She needed perhaps a deeper healing, a spiritual healing, an inner healing of all of the shame, perhaps, the trauma, and all of what she had to endure for those 12 years. And you know, it's interesting that the Lord listens to her attentively, and he says to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. Every aspect of it, the physical and also the spiritual aspect of this. Isn't this beautiful? But the Lord knew, he knows what we need. You know, she came out of desperation, but really out of an act of faith. And I thought about this sometimes because one thing that came to mind this morning is that we were at this conference with a fellow by the name of Neil Lozano. And not only was he lecturing to us, but he was praying for us, or he made himself available. He and his son Matt, who was also lecturing for him, and said, you know, we're speaking about healing, we're speaking about freedom, we're speaking about receiving God's grace. And he said, me and my son would like to offer up prayer for each and every one of you priests. And it was kind of interesting because I said to myself at first, oh, he's much too busy. I know a lot of the guys are going to sign up, and there will only be so many slots available, you know? You ever had those kind of feelings? You don't want to bother people? Anyway, on the second last day, this was going through my mind. Oh, I should maybe sign up, you know, but there's probably no room. And I got into the chapel for Mass, and during Mass, I seemed to hear the Lord say 3 times, ask, ask, ask. So I walked up to Mr. Lozano, and he said he had 1 slot left. And so he prayed with me, and it was a wonderful experience that I'll tell you about at another time. But you know, it's very interesting, you know, whatever that was in me, you know, not to be a bother type of thing. And sometimes I think that when it comes to asking the Lord for a particular grace or a particular healing or a favor, I wonder sometimes if we think something like this, you know, well, maybe I don't deserve to ask. Or is it that we kind of compare ourselves to other people as if to say, well, that person over there has 120 Club Jesus points. Like, how many of you are collecting the Club Jesus points, you know? And we feel at a certain point in our lives that maybe if we accumulate certain points by the things that we do for God, then we can approach Him. Well, that's not the way it works. And of course, we do gain merit and graces in faith, but it's not the way it works. The Lord wants us, in our need, to pray to Him, and yes, in certain situations, to cry out to Him. And He wants to increase our faith to do that, but He wants to free us up sometimes, because it may be, like myself, you know, that we might be afraid to ask. We feel that we're not deserving. Well, it's not about Club Jesus points. It's about the constant mercy and grace of God, which is not something that we earn. It's something that we can all receive. Do you get the picture? It's pretty easy. But we have sometimes these ways in which we think, you know, it may be like this woman that we feel if we approach the Lord, we somehow do that in fear and tremble. And it's not that we somehow disrespect the Lord. And Father Bob used to say, oh, I better not bother the Lord. He's so busy, you know, kind of running the world, you know, with all of the people that are asking for prayer. It doesn't work like that either. Each and every one of us can come to Him with our needs. And so the Lord is always at work. He's always interceding for us. He knows our every need before we ask Him. So let us run to Him. Let us come before Him. And we do more at Mass than touch His cloak. We receive within ourselves His life-giving body, soul, and divinity in the Holy Eucharist. What could be more intimate? What could be more grace-filled? And what could be more healing?